Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Tiki Bar is in fact open. And besides that, the Berserk Bobcat Saloon is open as well, and open for business. Good evening. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. You got a belly up to the bar, you kept your seat, it's great to see you back. Flatbait is going to be a bartender tonight. He pulls with the best of them, and the lava lamp. My left, your right, is lighted. We're trying a YouTube experiment tonight. The Tiki Bar is open, so you've got to come in and open up your mind. While you're doing that, though, I want to let you know that we don't water our drinks. Just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law, we talk about it all here with the Saloon. Nothing is sacred, the speech is free, but the booze is not. All that we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, and don't forget to tip your waitress. This, by the way, is a wonderful song by John Hyatt. This is what I wanted the original Saloon song to be, so I'm sort of cribbing this. And then I got another song done by Possessed Tranquility, which I like every bit as much as this in a different fashion, but I just felt like going a little bit different tonight. So, tonight, in the bar, we've got thank God the Tiki Bar is open. That's all I've got to say. And thank God for all the people that we've got here. Thanks for being in chat. Thanks to everybody who's here tonight. We've got some great guests. If I can click over to this. My gosh, already we have Jersey Joe. We've got Moab, Big Sarge in. We have Right Wing Aviator, and we have Mike in chat. Yes, Right Wing Aviator, you're absolutely right. It's the Tiki Bar. I had to bring that out. I started talking to you a little bit earlier today. Right Wing Aviator is a triple from the Hugh Hewitt Show. He and I conversed for quite some time. Tonight, in the Saloon, we have the Underground Professor, otherwise known as Dr. Michael Jones. He's going to be talking to us about all things constitutional. And then once he's done, we're going to talk a little bit about some various news because, as I'm sure you know, there's nothing going on right now. Absolutely nothing going on, which is really sad. Okay, it's not sad. Wait! The phone just rang. If I'm not mistaken, it is in fact the Underground Professor himself, Dr. Michael Jones. Good evening to you, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm alive.
Alive is excellent. You don't have the flu, do you?
No, actually, I'm feeling pretty good right now compared to the last 6 months.
Well, that's excellent.
I'm doing better than I have been in a long time.
That is absolutely excellent. I didn't have a chance to listen. I actually had to do some stuff. I had some wifely things to do. Were you able to pull up your show last Tuesday?
No. And I wasn't able to do it tonight either.
Son of a
stuck
bitch.
with family stuff both times. But I swear I'm going to be doing this one of these days. I'm going to actually make it to the microphone in time.
Well,
I didn't get home until 8:10 today. So I literally was walking up on my front porch when Ken called me to do the show with him.
Wow. Okay. Well, look at it this way. You're a very popular guy.
Well, sure. As a matter of fact, I just found out that I'm on half the milk bottles in Texas right now.
Wow. I didn't know you were that missing.
Yeah. And the post office must love me, too, because my picture's hanging up on one of them.
Did you find that your middle name is now Occupant?
Yes. Yes, resident and or occupant.
Yes, resident
so
or occupant.
I'm really in the big time right now.
Well, folks, Dr. Jones is kind enough...
before I forget, and you move on,
yes, sir.
Can you send me a link real quick? My girlfriend wants to hear the show, and I can't figure out how to send her there. Everything I'm showing is not working.
It's really simple, and thank you for asking, because that gives me the opportunity to say, folks, if you want to listen to us right now, we are on live at shrmedia.com, shrmedia.com. You can also go to highplainspundit.com and click on the little thing at the top that says High Plains Pundit Radio, and you'll see the Saloon there. I'm trying a YouTube experiment tonight, and you can go to YouTube if you want to watch me on YouTube, or if you want to go to Spreaker, which is kind of convoluted, you can go to Spreaker.com, enter the show Berserk Bobcat Saloon, and you see it there. But if you want to tell your girlfriend where to listen to you, the best way is just shrmedia.com. Directly, goes right there.
Huh. Wait a minute, I get a page here. All kinds of pictures that say Freedom Fest on it. shrmedia.com.
That very well could be it. Because what happened is the other show, occasionally if you go to the SHR Media blogspot.com, that doesn't work anymore. You may not remember, but about a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks ago, the whole site and Dan Butcher's site got hacked, and everything was taken down and turned upside down. If Dan had not saved and backed up everything, SHR and all its archives, etc., would have been absolutely lost. So,
oh my goodness!
Props to Dan Butcher.
The last thing I see on here is July 23rd.
It hasn't been updated for a while, because one of the things that occurred is I used to post material on shrmedia.com. Once that happened, once that got hacked, my ability to get into the website and create some content, because I'm not the administrator, obviously, I don't own that, I lost that ability to post. So there's not much going on right there. But if you click on live and chat, and I think it's on the upper left of shrmedia.com, you'll come down, you'll see the little bar across the top. It'll indicate the Saloon is playing, and then you can go into the chat room and see what's occurring in chat.
What am I looking for here? I'm on shrmedia.com.
Right. Go up to the top of that.
And I see the little Minuteman at the top. It says Media Done Right, Conservative Media Done Right.
Yeah, and you'll see Listen Live. It'll say Listen Live /chat, I think is what it says.
Where's that at?
Okay.
I don't get that on mine.
Okay.
Let's see. If I go to SHR Media Group, I get the same thing.
Okay. I'm on shrmedia.com. There's the logo at the top left, Conservative Media Done Right, because that's what it is. There's a little thing at the bottom of that, at the top, a bar. It says Home, and then Listen Live Chat.
I don't get that.
If you hit Listen Live Chat, you'll go right to the page, and you'll be able to listen live. Or you can go to Spreaker.
Wow.
Or you can go to YouTube. I swear to God, it's there.
Because I don't get any of that. I just have the one bar up there without the home or any of that.
I swear to God, I'm looking at it right now. Because the other thing,
now that's weird. On my iPhone, that's all I get. But when I do it on my iPad, it's there. It's a whole different page than what I'm seeing. I wonder what's there. Here you are. I got your chat room and everything now.
Okay, there you go. Now, see, I don't listen. I'm a weird guy, and it's probably because I'm old and ancient. I don't listen to stuff on my phone. Right now, I've got 2 computer screens in front of me, and I hate to look at stuff and listen to stuff on my phone. So when I'm telling you this, I'm looking at a big full screen. I'm looking at a big full screen on the left with Spreaker, which is where the show's going, and the big board is off to the left of that, and then I'm looking over to the right where I'm seeing SHR Media, and then I'm looking at the chat stuff right there. So I've got the full screen. Maybe that's cheating, is looking at the full screen stuff.
Yeah. I just don't get it on my iPhone, but I get it on my iPad. That's bizarre.
Yeah, it is. Right Wing Aviator in chat says, yeah, you're right. Too many choices. And in a way, that's I can't disagree with that. There's all sorts of, because if you don't keep up with all that stuff on social media, you're going to lose people. You're going to lose people that perhaps would have at one point listened to you or watched you. So you got to make all these, like you're on Periscope, for example, aren't you? When you do your show, you're on Periscope, and then aren't you on iTunes as well?
Yes, iTunes, UGP Radio, and
Yeah, see,
and I'm on Blueberry and SHR, iPlanes, Patriot Radio.
Yeah, see, you're all over the place too. And there's probably another spot that you forgot about. Because I can remember Sean from SHR Media said, I was cruising the internet at the end of the day, and I came across Sackheads Radio at some spot that I never knew we existed. So, people are pulling feeds all over the place. But I agree with Right-Wing Aviator. There's certainly a lot of choices out there. I want to let everybody know that we customarily talk to the underground professor, Dr. Michael Jones, on Thursdays. He's been very kind enough to come in here the past couple of Thursdays, and we talk about all things constitutional because, in fact, Dr. Jones is a constitutional scholar. So I wanted to ask you, we spoke about some things last week, some fundamentals about the Constitution itself and what the U.S. truly is. It is a constitutionally federated republic, and we spoke at length about that last week. But I want to ask you, what do you think is one of the biggest things that most people do not know about the Constitution?
I think the number one thing that most people don't know about the Constitution is that it's the only law that all Americans came together to pass. And that's the only time that the entire American people came together to pass a law. And then the Constitution, by its passing, then separated and limited powers and took that authority away from we, the sovereigns. So we no longer have the right to pass laws. How's that sound?
How the heck did that come about?
Well, the founders, the framers rather, of the Constitution, Hamilton, Madison, all those guys, they realized that this was so important and that we were establishing a new government and that we were going to do it peacefully, because this wasn't the Articles of Confederation, which were forged in blood under war.
Right.
We had won that. And so this was the American people coming together to fix the problems of government, allegedly. And, of course, there was a disagreement, between the Federalists and Anti-Federalists. But the idea was to come together and peacefully create a new government from the minds of men and the will of the people, and not by the sword and not by blood, whether it's shed on the battlefield or sanguinity laws like, because the father was the king, now I am. And so we were going to create an actual government that wasn't based on heredity or the end of a sword. And they figured that the most important part of this would be that those that had the franchise, and granted this was a very limited franchise at this point, it pretty much was white landowning males or men who earned over $20 a year that did not own land. And they had to be Christian, pretty much. They had to belong to church, and that wasn't a national procedure. That was what most states had created and required. But the framers of the Constitution realized this was so important that they could not have an assembly of men that were representative of each state, like under the Continental Congress where we created the Articles of Confederation, that this had to be bigger than that, and that this had to be something where everybody had skin in the game. And so what they did was they sent it to all, the states, 13, whatever it was at the time, and they said, you guys need to get this approved, and you need to have your people do it, not just the legislative bodies of each state. And they were states because when we had the treaty in Paris of over with King George at the end of hostilities with Britain, King George was forced to recognize each state as a sovereign country in the treaty. And so he had to have a peace treaty with Georgia, and he had to have a peace treaty with Virginia, and he had to have a peace treaty with New York, etc. And that, that wasn't easy for King George to swallow.
I was going to say that
made each
that had to hurt.
Sovereign. What?
I said that had to hurt. You're right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't. I don't feel too bad for King George, but my sympathies go out for a man who was, basically the king of an empire that the sun never set on, and then he had to sign that treaty 13 times. So yeah, yeah, my heart goes out to him. But anyway, so what they did was they had the entire American people. So we had constitutional conventions in every state, except one. I think Delaware refused to do it. And then, and we, the people, came together and made a decision. Delaware eventually felt the economic pressure of not voting for the Constitution because the rest of the country said, you know what, we're not going to trade with you. You're not part of our country. And so, eventually they gave in under economic pressures. But that, I think, is one of the least known facts of the Constitution is that we, the people, voted for it. And we pledged in perpetuity. I can't say that word too easily. English is my second language. But because I grew up in Japan, in case you didn't know.
No, you're right.
So I learned Japanese faster than I learned English. I was learning them both concurrently, but I picked up Japanese much easier. And so I have a hard time with L's and R's and crap. But anyway, we pledged in perpetuity our progeny to the Constitution, meaning that if you want the rights of being an American, then you have to adhere to the Constitution. And if you don't, then you're free to leave. Good riddance. But yeah, I think that's the least known fact of the Constitution. There may be some obscure stuff that, anecdotal or apocryphal that, may be interesting. But I think that's the most important and salient fact is that, we today often forget that we're actually still the sovereigns of this country. And that, idiots like Lindsey Graham up there are not. And he's forgotten, too. Because one of my crawls in my mouth right now is that Lindsey Graham came out and said that the Congress needed to pass legislation to statutorily forbid the president of firing Mulvey or whatever his name is. And,
Mueller, right.
And it just angered me that a senator would actually think that the Congress can pass a law to prevent the president from exercising a constitutional provision that's enumerated as one of his powers.
You bring up an interesting point. Yeah. So I have a question for you. Since you went there, I'm going to follow you up on that. If Lindsey Graham is suggesting that he wants a law in order to do that, to keep the president from flexing his powers, his constitutional powers, my God, are there lawyers sufficiently intelligent these days and sufficiently conversant with the U.S. Constitution to go in and make a cogent argument and say, no, that's absolutely illegal. That cannot be done. The president is acting within the specific powers granted to him under the Constitution.
I think Lindsey Graham is a lawyer, and that you should probably find out what law school you went to if you're a lawyer, and if you went to the same law school, you should probably sue for a refund. So, yeah. A casual reading of the president's authority, it says right there that the full authority of the executive branch is invested in the president. It's not spread out. It's not given partially to Congress. It's not shared. No one else in the executive branch has the authority. It is invested fully in the President of the United States as chief executive. He has the right to do all these things. Now, it may not be politically prudent to fire Comey or Mulvey or any of that, but he certainly has the authority under the Constitution. We gave him the authority, and that's another fact I think is important to remember, is that what we, the sovereigns, did was we said, okay, the executive gets this authority, and we gave it to the executive branch. And then we said that it's invested fully in the president, and he has this authority. So Congress doesn't have the authority to create a statute to prevent the president from exercising authority. They don't have the authority because we gave the president that authority. And the president not only doesn't have the right to give that authority to Congress, he doesn't have a right to give it back to us either, and unless we take it back from him. and that would require a constitutional convention to do so. And so the president's stuck with that authority, and Congress has no right to weigh into it. But not that that would stop him, because clearly the Second Amendment says Congress shall make no law, and, you know, the rest is history. So.
Well, you bring up an excellent point, and that is this. So few of our elected officials are conversant with the Constitution itself, including Mr. Obama, who professed to be a constitutional scholar. When you were just saying that,
and people laugh when they say I'm one. You know, it's like, please. Well, he teaches the Constitution to people. Yeah, I would demand a refund from any college that man professed at over constitutional law. Yet there are colleges that do not teach anything about the Constitution easily at all. And then there are colleges that do teach the Constitution or have requirements for you to take constitutional law. But there are two ways to teach constitutional law.
Okay.
The way 99% of colleges teach it is to go and teach stare decisis, which is, you know, precedent.
Okay.
Meaning you sit down, and they don't talk about the Federalists or Anti-Federalists. They talk about, you know, Brown Board of Education. They talk about, you know, the school busing. They talk about stuff like this. They do not talk about how the Constitution was created.
I see.
Out of about
Yes.
1% of the colleges, they actually will sit down, like at Hillsdale College. In the political science department, they teach constitutional studies where you go through the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers, the debates on the Constitution, the notes of Madison and Hamilton, you know, all these things are hashed out in constitutional law. And then in the history department, they have a class, and I forget what it's called, but it's basically the other way of studying the Constitution. And so there, at Hillsdale, you get both ways of doing it. And that's why Hillsdale College students can run circles around most Harvard, Yale, Duke, you know, graduates, because they only have been given stare decisis, and they have no clue how the Constitution was set up, what the founders' original intent was. And not only that, not only did they not know it, but they have contempt for the very concept of original intent, as if only the current generation matters. And, you know, a generation's what, every 2 decades.
Yes.
So basically what we're saying is that you and I, as baby boomers, are now surrendering the interpretation of the Constitution to millennials. Now, I'm rather afraid of allowing someone who refuses to buy a car and still lives in their mom's basement and plays video games all day to be the arbiter of what the Constitution is interpreted as. but you know, that's not really what's happening. All they're really saying is that we want to do what we want to do, and so we're going to interpret it in such a fashion that it justifies our actions. And if you hold us to what the original intent of the Constitution is, then we won't be able to do what we want to do. And remember Nancy Pelosi's famous quote when she was asked under what provision of the Constitution empowered them to create Obamacare in the first place, and her response was, "You got to be kidding me." I thought this was a legitimate question, or ask me a legitimate question, meaning that they can do whatever the heck they want, and there's no restriction on what Congress does. And that philosophy evidently is in the Republican Party as well, when you hear McCain and Graham talk.
Which is ever incredibly, incredibly sad. Folks, we got another 5 minutes left. We're talking to, thank God, a constitutional scholar, the underground professor himself, Dr. Michael Jones. When you heard the executive decisions, the executive orders that came down earlier this year in January from President Trump indicating there will be an immigration stay, and the various judges weighed in and said that no, that can't happen. When I looked and read the statutes themselves about the powers that the president possesses, then I have to ask you, Dr. Jones, did you not throw a camshaft when you heard that crap?
Yeah. It's like, am I even in the same world as these people?
Yes.
You know, it just blows my mind. And it's like, and what really scares me is not so much those people saying that that doesn't bother me near as much as when I think about all the nodding heads out there that are hearing it. And they're nodding their heads, in agreement. And that's who scares me. Because these guys, they probably know better. They're just trying to justify, again, their power and their position and their desire. But they get this power and this ability to do things to us because too many of us out in the real world just nod our heads and say, yeah, well, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, we're absolutely not.
Why can't Congress pass a law? Why can't they do this?
We're not knowledgeable. When you say that, though, I have to come to the conclusion of this, then, and obviously you're going to correct me if I'm wrong. The way that you mentioned that those schools teach the Constitution is purposeful and it's got to be agenda-driven. I don't see any other option. So, am I right? Is it agenda-driven? They're teaching it purposely, completely omitting the history behind it purposefully.
Yes, well, they can't afford to teach original intent, or that changes the entire dynamics of the constitutional study. And what they want is, well, let me put it like this. When you look at the way progressives get policies enacted, it's not always through the legislature. In fact, most of the time, it's legislation from the judicial bench.
Yes.
And so they put their faith and stock in getting what they want through the courts and not through state legislatures and the central government's legislative body. And so all of these colleges that are out there teaching the future leaders of our country, and I'm being especially places like Harvard and Yale and Duke, the Ivy Leaguers, they are teaching a body of people very purposely that this is the way you do it, and this is why, and that this is how government really works, and this is what the Constitution means because of how judges interpreted the Constitution. And knowing that, and I've had professors argue with me on this, and I responded to them. Look, I said none of the founding fathers would have made the argument at all. None of them, not even John Jay, would have made the argument that the Supreme Court was the final arbiter over what is constitutional and what is not. And with the exception of Plessy v. Ferguson, which kind of set the precedent of the court having a say in what is constitutional. But even then, they weren't making the argument that the Constitution was only in the hands of the Supreme Court. But when you go through constitutional studies, what you learn is that the Supreme the supreme law of the land is nothing more than what judges at your current time say they are. And when you hear them preach precedents, you notice that precedence is selective.
Yes.
Because
bingo.
Yeah, and I often point this out to them, that the Supreme Court once ruled that black people were in fact property. And if that's precedent, and we're going to live by precedent, then why can't black people still be property today?
Absolutely.
And so that, to me, undercuts their argument of the infallibility of a pontifical Supreme Court, because they make a lot of bad decisions. And they make unconstitutional decisions, too. This current Supreme Court under Chief Justice Roberts tortured the rule of law under its determination that the Obamacare was constitutional.
Oh,
first, they had to call it a tax, and then they had to call it, what was the other one? One was a tax and one was a fee or something. I can't remember exactly what, but they had to call the thing two different diametrically opposed ideas in order to say that it was constitutional. And it's just insane.
It is insane. I got a lot more questions. Thank you for being on the show, folks. We were listening to I swear to God, thank you for being on the show, the underground professor who is a constitutional scholar. I love to listen to you, and you're going to be back next Thursday. You went so...
questions.
Oh, hell. Boy, just in that past half hour, I had the proverbial arse load of questions that spun off in all sorts of different directions. So, folks, thank you.
Well, maybe next week we'll do an hour if you want.
You got to thank the professor, because I'm telling you, the stuff and the questions that you go one place and my mind instantly says, okay, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? Yeah, we're going to have you back. So, folks, that was the underground professor himself. That's Dr. Michael Jones. And I'll tell you what, we are going to be back. Please come back right after this break.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Catholic, stupid.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com and highplains.dailynews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, and despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are in fact listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. I am your host, the bloviating Zeppelin himself, otherwise known as BZ, and you're listening to the Aftermath, which I customarily quantify as all the shite that I couldn't fit into the Tuesday show that the sackheads absolutely precluded me from even mentioning due to my shameless contract on the Wednesday show last night. So I have to pack all that buttery political goodness somewhere And it ends up being here. Tell you what, let's turn up the volume. Let's kick out the jams and turn up the volume a little bit more. There's so much news that's been going on. Well, first, this comes to mind. We were talking to the underground professor, Dr. Michael Jones, who is a constitutional scholar, and I could easily talk to him for another hour and listen to all the things that he's got, because all he does is provoke questions. But in terms of the Constitution, and some of the folks in chat mentioned Hillsdale College, because we happen to play a Hillsdale College promo right there. Go to the Hillsdale College website. When you're there, you can take a class called Constitution 101 over the internet, and I think it's constructed by Dr. Larry Arnn, who, if you haven't heard this guy before, he's a beautiful genius, really smart guy. He's on Hugh Hewitt all the time on that show. And you can take Constitution 101. It's absolutely free. It's completely engaging. And you will learn stuff. I took that course, which is one of the reasons that after just watching and learning some of that stuff, that I knew that I wanted to get the underground professor onto the show to discuss more constitutional issues, just as he laid out for all of us here, that primarily and purposely are uncovered, not covered by people in apparently learned institutions because they have an agenda. This is nothing new. This is what we already inherently sussed out and believed. And all the underground professor did is confirm that for me. And essentially what he said is there are two ways of learning constitutional law. Tort law by all the cases itself, and to hell with the history, or you learn the cases and you learn the history and the reasons to be a truly educated individual, the reasons why the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, it all comes together, why and how they were created. Wouldn't you then want that more broad and education? Well, if you're leftist, no, you wouldn't. So, Hillsdale College, go to that website. I don't know what the URL is offhand, but I got to tell you, it's a great course. And my mother told me a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, enjoy it and respond to people when they compliment you. So I want to acknowledge the people that are in chat right now. Mike's in chat. Whiskey Dale is in chat. Right Wing Aviator is in chat. Moab Radio is in chat. And Dan Butcher is in chat. Now, Moab Radio, he's a relatively new guy to the chat room, but he is not a new guy, because we're going to be speaking to him probably in about 5 minutes or so. And here's why. Here's what I'm doing. Dan Butcher's in chat. Dan is a media guy, a media-savvy guy, like par excellence. You can find him at highplainspundit.com. He has High Plains Radio, High Plains TV, and they're working in concert. He and his wife are working in concert with SHR Media to bring all of these shows under sort of a big umbrella, so that we have lots of people to talk to. We have just a massive amount of diverse people on the air. And what I wanted to do tonight, now we've spoken to Dan Butcher, for example. He was on the show just on Tuesday, 2 days ago. Love to talk to Dan. Thank you for being in chat, Dan. Really appreciate it. But I want to try to get to know some of the other people that you can find on SHR Media. And that's why I had Melanie Colette on not long ago. Melanie is a financial whiz. And so tonight what I'd like to do is introduce to the audience, just for my folks, because this is the first time I will have ever spoken to Big Sarge, who has his own radio show, Moab Radio. And you can find him on Twitter at Moab Radio 101. He's on Facebook. I don't think that Moab is on Facebook under Moab Radio. I think he's under Robert Brandt, if I'm not mistaken. But he's going to be calling in, and I want to get to know lots more people. Cross-promotion, that's my big thing. I want to find out what Moab has to say. I'm sure he's going to find out what I have to say. I don't think he's been here in the Saloon before. Dan certainly has, and I appreciate it. So we're going to be chatting with that because, my God, it's almost like where do you start? One of the places that you might be able to start is this. We have more leaks. The leaks are not stopping. And I'm just wondering how far all this shite is going to go before someone actually gets hurt or killed. It already happened in the prior administration when we decided it would be a grand thing to run guns to Mexico, and we had a U.S. Border Patrol agent killed because of that, Brian Terry. We lost 4 Americans in Benghazi. I still don't think that the full information has come out about Benghazi, and if you ask me, I think some of it was due to gun running, in fact, again. Now we have more leaks. And what has occurred mostly today is the Washington Post now got information from some people inside the administration who gave the Washington Post transcripts of personal telephone calls between President Trump and other country leaders. Now, there's a story out from Fox News, and basically it goes like this. Whoever leaked the transcripts of President Trump's phone calls with foreign leaders to the press likely committed a crime, and that's being said by former prosecutors today, and lawmakers, of course, are calling like hell, as they should, for getting to the bottom of this, for calling and getting out the culprits. There's a guy named Joe DeGenova, who happens to be a former U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia. And he said the unauthorized release of these documents to the press is, in fact, a crime. The series of acts involving a release of notes of the president's conversations with foreign leaders in these transcripts are a serious threat to national security. Now, stop. Okay, well, why would they're just conversations. They're just transcripts. What's the big deal? People talk to other people all the time. People also are due their privacy. Put yourself now, because of this, put yourself into the shoes or the chair of a leader of a major foreign nation. What confidence are you going to have now that any conversation you conduct with the President of the United States won't get out into the U.S. media and therefore all around the world? What if you have something extremely sensitive that you must speak to the president about? What kind of confidence do you have now that whatever it is that you say, up to and including extremely sensitive security issues, are not going to be splayed all over the front pages of the Washington Post and the New York Times at all? Ad nauseum. That's the fundamental issue here. Would it not give you pause as a leader of a foreign nation? And how fucking sad is it now that as a leader of a foreign nation, now you have to consider, if I want to speak to the United States, there's a really good chance that whoever I talk to, and if I talk to the president
of a foreign nation,
it's going to get out. How sad is that? That's a huge issue, a massive issue. Well, I have to tell you that we now have on the line, we have Big Sarge from Moab Radio. And so, Big Sarge, I have to say to you, sir, welcome to the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, BZ. I appreciate you having me on.
Number one, I have to tell everybody, and I told you, Big Sarge, that I was going to say this, and I have to say it up front. You're on the East Coast. It's 11:45, almost the witching hour of midnight, and you're calling into a radio show. So, number one, thank you very much for doing so. I don't know what your CP time normally is. I'm a late night kind of guy, but that's just the way it goes. Well, because of the show. But I have to tell you, up front, thank you very much for being on the show live. I appreciate the time that you're taking to do it.
Hey, no problem, and I appreciate being here. Dan actually turned me on to your show not too long ago, and I've been watching ever since you and Jersey. So you got two fans, or you got at least one fan over here, and I know a couple of my guys always are tuning in as well. Jake's one of them. So it's a pleasure being here.
Well, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. You've had a radio show for quite a while, and I think you've been, blogging or on the radio for quite some time now, have you not?
Yeah, I started out at Blog Talk Radio. When Blog Talk Radio first came out, I can remember I used to do it on my BlackBerry.
Oh, my God.
And then I kind of took a hiatus for a while, and then I came back into it a few years ago, and then took another break, and then recently came back into it probably about 6-7 months ago.
So your show, okay, first, up front, again,
sure.
Tell everybody where you can be read, where you can be found, where your shows are located, where you can be seen, and also the various social media sites if people want to go and find out some more about you.
Sure. We do have a YouTube page. All you do is got to do a search for Moab Radio with Big Sarge. You'll find it, and you can hit subscribe to it if you want. We're not doing too much with YouTube right now. We're kind of feeling it out. I am on Facebook. It's www.facebook.com/Moab Radio 101. So that's where I do most of my feeds from currently. And, of course, we're on Twitter at Moab Radio 101. So that's where you can find us at.
Cool. Now, I have to tell you...
website as well. So.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. The website? What was that?
No, we're in the middle of building a website as well. I didn't, to be honest, when I got back into this, BZ, I didn't think it would take off as much as it has, and I didn't. I just fell in love with, getting back on the radio and doing it. It just, it just seems natural.
Let me tell you a secret. There was a long time ago when I used to work for KFBK Radio in Sacramento, which is I worked there before Rush Limbaugh worked for KFBK. And I got out of radio because it just didn't make any damn money. And then I got into law enforcement. That's what I did for 41 years. I just retired about a year and a half or so ago. Then I got back into radio because I wasn't having people trying to kill me or spit at me anymore. And I thought it would be great to get back into radio. What's this internet radio thing? I found the Sackheads. I found Sackhead Sean. Now I got my own damn show. It's great. Dan Butcher decided that he was going to work some things around. And Dan, I don't know if you're listening right now. You very well may be. But I bet it's just like you, Big Sarge. Once the radio bug bites you, you're infected. And that's the way it goes. I love being on the radio again. I know Dan does. I know for a damn fact Dan does. I got you nailed, sir. And I bet I have you nailed, Big Sarge, as well. Do I not?
Oh, you do, 110%. When I got back into it, like I said recently, we just started doing video. Probably, I'm into my 14th episode. I do a lunchtime, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I do a lunchtime. I call it Sarge Says, where I do a 30-minute rant, and then I do a political show Monday night at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, and I usually get guests in for that. And then, of course, our very raw, we have a little graphic thing up there that says beware. That's our radio show on Saturday night, and that usually goes for 2 hours. So, when I started doing it, BZ, I was great. It felt that this is where I belong,
You feel like you're really, number one, it's fun as hell. You feel like you're contributing, and it's also a way to vent. When I started blogging back in 2004, I have to say it was just a vent. That's all it was. It was a venting of lots of things that I wanted to write about. So I still have my blog, bloviatingzeppelin.net. When I had the ability to get back into radio, and then in combination with the blog, and then on Twitter, and now I'm trying to figure the fuck out of Facebook, and now that leads to YouTube, so I have to be upfront with you, sir. Tonight is an experiment. YouTube has kind of screwed me in the past, and Jeff Dunitz, who is also a great radio host on SHR and also on High Plains Pundit Radio, Jeff Dunitz has had some serious issues with YouTube. And tonight, I've winkled things around a little bit, so I hate to say it, you're an experiment. What YouTube has happened to do to me in the past is it doesn't mind listening to me, but it hates to listen to my callers. And when people have called in and I'm running YouTube, as I'm running tonight, right now, it'll be like a half hour. However long you're calling, it's like I'm talking to myself. I'm talking to a ghost. So I'm trying something new tonight. I've put Skype on this computer over here on the right instead of the Sackheads radio computer, and I'm going to wait and see how it goes. So my next question to you is, you've been having trouble with YouTube, apparently. Was that one of the issues that you had?
Yeah, actually, YouTube, we could get, excuse me, the same thing. We couldn't hear our callers. And one day it would be great. The next day it would be terrible. And the next day, you know, I must have, Jake's my tech guy, and he's listening in here. He's in the chat room. Him and I must have been on the phone for 3 hours trying to figure out the mix, you know, getting the mix right on my mixer board. And then we thought it was perfect. And then the next show, you could hardly hear anything. So I kind of put YouTube to the side for now. And now I'm on Facebook Live. And I like Facebook Live, except Facebook has been targeting Moab Radio lately, and I'm not sure why, because all my professional stuff has been on Facebook, and I keep all my raw stuff on YouTube. So, you know, they cut, like last week, they cut, we had a 2.5-hour show. Usually our Saturday shows only go for 2 hours, but we just had some great conversations. I had like a ton of callers in my call queue, and we were just going at it. So we decided to stay for another half hour, and Facebook cut probably a good 35 minutes off that show, and it was terrible. You know, I could barely hear anybody, and you know, the people say, you know, turn it up, and we turn it up, and it was all the way up, and I was like, you know, we're just going to roll with it, and you know, take a punch to the cheek on that one.
I fully understand that Facebook and Twitter are privately owned. I get it. But the bias that's there is absolutely stultifying. And you're right. I see Jake. There's Jake in the chat room right here. Hello to Jake, waving Jake. Jake said, yeah, we're getting Zuckerberged is what we're doing. Twitter is suffering some of the results of that, however, because I've noticed that their stock is going down. And I've noticed that they're complaining about losing advertising. And I'm also noticing that a lot of people are starting to migrate, and I hope more do it, over to Gab.ai. I had the same discussion last night. I like Gab. I subscribe to Gab. I find it a little bit confusing because I'm an old fart and a techno-Luddite. I wish it had the more intuitive face look to it, a graphic user interface. But I'd love to see more people migrate over to Gab and give the big fucking finger to Twitter and Facebook. The problem is that so many other people that you want to get in contact with will find you on Facebook, they'll find you on Twitter, and then you've got these guys coming in, these leftist fucktards, deciding that they want to interview. And see, this what you tell me right this is not an algorithm, I think. Someone purposely had to go in, and you correct me if I'm wrong. Jake, you're in chat. You correct me if I'm wrong in chat. Someone had to purposely go in and censor and remove a specific portion or an aspect of your show. I don't think that that's an algorithm that does that.
No, it certainly isn't. And it's funny that you should say that, BZ, because today I got a message from the Facebook community terms of services people, and they deleted one of my Sarge Says videos. And like I said, my Sarge Says, you know, I usually, like, for example, one of my Sarge Says yesterday, excuse me, we were talking, I had done an excerpt on patriotism. You know, is patriotism dead? And we talked in 30 minutes. I had a little Q&A session with my audience, and it went great. And I had another Q&A similar like it, and I think we talked, I can't remember exactly what the topic was. I think it was left versus right, and is the liberal left attacking the right? And that's the one that got deleted.
You're kidding me. Now, no. You can't even talk about patriotism?
Well, no, the patriotism one didn't get deleted. The one that had left versus the right, and of course, now, you know, I admit most of my audience is conservative. but I do try to leave the platform open where if a leftist or an independent or a libertarian or whatever, you wherever you fall in the spectrum want to come in and talk, we're not going to lambast you, unless you start lambasting us, of course, then you better watch out because we're going to drop a couple of bombs on you. But that show, it was just my half-an-hour rant, so I didn't have anybody on my call line, and it was more educational than anything. And it was, like I said, it was a Q&A session, so the audience was contributing more than I was, and we were talking about the left versus the right, and a lot of people were talking about the left attacking the right and how things are happening out in the conservative world. They're trying to shut the conservative radio shows down, yada yada, and that's the one that Zuckerberg and gang deleted.
And again, that you cannot convince me in any way, shape, or form that some kind of a purposeful or mindless program went in there to do that. Some individual had to go in and do that when you were opening it up to calls, and now apparently you can't talk about left versus right. I mean, it's heinous to talk about liberty in and of itself, but now you can't even address issues of left and right. Now that makes me wonder if I should even waste any of my time doing anything on Facebook.
And Facebook only streams at 720p, and I try to do the stuff on Google Hangouts as well, and I didn't like. I heard Google was even worse than Facebook was, so I didn't even bother going to that platform. But like I said, we've been predominantly on Facebook, and I always state in the beginning of the shows that. Except for my Saturday shows. Now, my Saturday shows, I go after the left. But see, I do that on YouTube, and I haven't been censored at all on YouTube, surprisingly. But Facebook is just constantly hitting me up and hitting me and hitting me. And of course, just like every conservative, I'm really hardcore anti-Antifa, here in the Harrisburg area, and I've been going after them hardcore. So they've been kind of coming after me as well, trying to shut the radio show down. They made tons of complaints against the radio show, and I'm thinking maybe they might have had some leeway because I do believe we were talking about Antifa during that show, and I believe they might have gotten some leeway and gotten Facebook to delete that video or that that half-hour show because of that.
Okay, now the clouds are starting to part. In other words, what that's telling me is that you're sufficiently large that you're getting a lot of input, you're getting a lot of people watching you, you're getting a lot of people listening to you. Now, because of that, all right, the curtains are parting. I'm beginning to understand why they went in there and do that. Because now that you've got the attention of a local group focusing upon you, that's another duck entirely. I just discovered yesterday, and like I say, I'm pretty much a techno-Luddite, but I just discovered yesterday, or the day before, Tuesday, I was speaking to another gal named Carrie Baxter Donovan, who covers politics on the East Coast, and we were talking about Twitter, and I said, I'm losing a lot of stuff, and people are saying, hey, you're sending out tweets, and I'm not getting that stuff, and I figured out, and she determined that, hey, dude, guess what? You've been shadow banned by Twitter. And she says that's not anybody in particular, but that is an algorithm that determines that it's not going to let the bulk of the tweets go out that you're sending. Now, people can go back to my timeline and discover the tweets that are there. But when I send them out, apparently I might as well be pissing in the wind.
Right. And you can see how much of the left, I mean, it's pretty prevalent in any platform you go. And I've been on some of their radio shows, and I've been in some of their groups and trying to debate with them and, hearing their point of view.
Right.
But, they keep calling themselves the tolerant progressive movement, and they're only tolerant, if you agree with them. The minute you disagree with them, they become intolerant.
Okay. Folks, we're going to have to go for a break. We've been talking to Big Sarge, who is on Moab Radio, has his own radio show. And when we come back, I'd like to ask Big Sarge some other questions about where you are, what you've done, and perhaps some of the things about where do you think we are right now, and where are we going to go in the not too terribly distant future. Folks, hang around. Please come back right after this break.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Catholic, stupid.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to Ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is, in fact, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. It's Thursday, the year of our Lord August, 2017. The best... Ooh, I can't say that. I'd be bigfooting the Sackheads Radio. The second best conservative late night talk show on the SHR Media Network, but it's actually the best run by a single individual. Okay, therefore, I can quantify it in that fashion. So, good night to Whiskey Dale. I hate to see you go, but thank you for being in chat. Appreciate it. Hey, we got Jake in chat. We have Big Sarge. We have reactionaries in chat. We have Mary Brockman, Mike in chat, and we still have Right Wing Aviator, who is a pilot with right-wing leanings. Shock of shocks. Not any shock to you. So we're talking to the owner of Moab Radio. We're talking to the Big Sarge, who has his own show. And so tell me, sir, a little bit of your background. You're named Big Sarge, so I'm just obviously guessing that you spent some time in the military, did you not?
Oh, yes, sir. I spent a lot of time in the military. Loved every minute of it. I came in as a 60 A3 tanker. I did it was called the split op program back then, which my 11th grade year, my 11th grade summertime, I went to basic and then came back and graduated and then did my AIT and then went regular service after that. I've been to Iraq #1. I've been to Somalia. I've been to Germany. We actually took one of the last OPs down after the wall came down in Germany. That was great to, that I was a part of history on that. I was a young buck private then, so I didn't know, I didn't know anything about history. I wasn't, thinking I was a part of history. But now that I look back at it, I'm like, you were a part of that. Where else I've been? I've been to Korea. I went back to Iraq #2. And I was in Kosovo and ended up back over there as a contractor later on in Kosovo. And that's where I met my wife. She's from Kosovo. And got out in Korea, and I worked Army contracting for a while, and now I work for the government as a GS-12. So life's great. I loved my service, and I've been all over the world. I got to travel a lot, see a lot of different people, experience a lot of culture, and I wouldn't give it up for the world.
GS-12, you're doing okay.
Yes, sir. You know what? I got blessed with that job, and the folks that I work for. I just recently had my second bout of cancer not too long ago, and they've been. I beat it, and they've actually been a huge support channel on that. So I can't say anything negative about life right now. Life is good.
Okay, since you went there, I'll follow it up. I spoke about this on my very, very first radio show. I have not even been on a year yet. One of the things that I said on my radio show, which was nothing but 2 hours of me talking about my past and my background, is that I've had cancer before, too. I am a 3-time survivor of cancer. I have no idea why the hell I'm here. First, I started out in about 1994. I got breast cancer. It went away. I was put on something that was absolutely reprehensible, called Cytoxin, which was one of Kaiser's finest. I was a lovely guinea pig for Kaiser. That was great. I drove porcelain buses all over the United States. It was a wonderful thing. Then that went away. Remission. Then it came back. Then I got prostate cancer. Then I had melanoma. Well, I still get checked every month. So despite all that shite, and working, so where did I work when I got melanoma? Well, the reason I got melanoma is because I worked out in the sun all the damn time. And then when I was our EVOC sergeant, which is the Emergency Vehicle Operations Course supervisor, I had to stand out in the sun all day long, training people in emergency vehicles, cop cars, trucks, fire equipment, emergency rigs, box medics, etc. Then, of course, I went to our range and became our range master for our 2,000-plus deputy department. And, of course, what do you do when you're a range master? You stand out on the line for hours at a time. So it's no wonder that my back kind of looks like the topographic map of the moon, so to speak. So fist bumps to you, Big Sarge.
Same back to you, brother.
You are still here. You are a survivor. Yeah. Love to hear that. Absolutely love to hear that.
Yeah, it's like I said, it was a blessing in disguise. And you know what? I don't want to say, because things, the whole way life gives you throws different circumstances at you. Since I was technically working from home for a while, because they're going through chemotherapy, I went through a strong bleomycin session, almost a year. And it destroyed me. I couldn't hardly go to work. There was days I couldn't even get out of bed. And at the end of it, when I came out of it, I still had some time to recover. And I decided that at that time that what, why not pass the time by getting back in the radio and see where it goes. And so inadvertently, cancer pushed me back into radio. Okay. I don't want to say that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it was weird how that all how that all had transpired and brought me to where I'm at today.
Let me ask you one thing. I'm sure that you've taken any number of terrible cocktails, etc., etc. You've been, you've watched your hair fall out. You've waved bye-bye to your eyebrows, etc., etc. By the way, I just thought I'd tell you, after having worked in law enforcement for 41 years, people look at me and they say, well, you're ugly, you're fat, and you're really old. By the way, I've noticed that you have a hell of a lot of hair. Your hair is long, it's gray, and you've got a big arse beard. Well,
not anymore. I shaved the beard, and I had to get rid of the hair. That's my first since the chemo, that I let my hair grow back, and I actually got some videos posted when I was going through chemo when I actually started the radio show, and I'm bald, bald as a light bulb, and I said this time, I want to let it grow in, and I let it grow in, and I was like, you know what, I can't handle it. I'm so used to the military style haircuts and having short hair, and the beard was just getting scratchy. My wife loved it. And I liked it for a certain amount of time, but it just got to be too much to take care of. And I said, you know what? I'm shaving it all off. That's what I did. So now I'm clean cut and shaven, and I still got a goatee, but for the most part, the beard's gone. So it was kind of sad to see it go because that's the first time I had gotten a full beard like that. But it is what it is.
My goal when I retired was to look like Dusty Hill from ZZ Top on a number of levels, because for all that time I wore either a uniform or a suit. And trust me when I tell you, I'm not wearing any more uniforms and I'm not wearing any more suits, period, end of statement. Growing out my beard and having long hair is my very personal, loving fuck you to cancer as well. Just thought I'd say.
My wife tells me, BZ, she says, you're the only man that I know that can go to work wearing a suit and tie all day long and then come home and wear T-shirts and shorts. I don't have anything in between.
That's true. I don't have anything in between either. All my uniforms are still, I pressed them, put them in a closet, put them all away, and here I am today. You're on the East Coast, so I wanted to find out, in what state and or town are you?
I'm from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I call it the Communist Commonwealth of PA.
Okay. I know very little, if anything, about Pennsylvania, so maybe you can fill me in about a bit of the political climate around there. You already said something about Antifa.
Yeah. Pennsylvania is a liberal state. Now, Trump won this state, which surprised me, very much. It's run by a very liberal governor. It has a lot of, they're kind of segregated into the bigger cities, the liberals. Like, for example, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and Scranton area and Erie. So those four big cities, and, of course, Harrisburg. Harrisburg is where I'm from, and it's run by a liberal mayor who I don't get along very well. Him and I have history together. I used to run a nonprofit a few years ago called the Pennsylvania Veterans Chamber of Commerce. And we ended up going under because we basically got no support. I was running the nonprofit out of my own pocket, and of course, being married, the wife says enough's enough. You had your 3 years, 4 years. Nobody wants to come help you because it's a liberal state of Pennsylvania, so you might as well just close up shop. And it was sad to see that because we worked very hard, helping a lot of veterans in the area, and you just can't get no help at all. It's a very liberal state. Harrisburg is crime-ridden. Antifa. Let me give you an example. About 3 years ago, they had a rally for the troops event in the downtown Harrisburg at the Capitol steps. They were giving us crap about trying to hang the American flag up in a certain area.
What?
All right, they were the way the organizers they had it. Yeah, I mean it was crazy. They had the fire trucks come, and the crane or the ladders of the fire trucks went up, and you hung the American flag down. Well, they were given the Capitol Police were giving them, and of course a bunch of people that lived in the area were giving them crap about, parking the fire trucks, And long story short, we had probably about 200 people show up to that event, which we thought was a great turnout. And the USO got some money from a couple of organizations and yada yada. So 2 weeks later, and we couldn't. Here's I'm going to get to my point here. We couldn't park anywhere around the area there. They wouldn't let us park anywhere around the area because it would impede traffic, and we had to have everybody up on the Capitol steps and not down below the Capitol steps, or people would get tickets. No problem. We did all of that. So I was a keynote speaker besides the governor at the time, and fast forward 3 weeks later, when the gay marriage law got passed in Pennsylvania, they had a big rally down on the Capitol steps. They flew rainbow flags everywhere. They had rainbow flags flying on the Capitol steps, laying all over the Capitol steps. Now, I don't care what they do in their own time. I don't I'm not spreading any type of hate or anything. That's not what I'm about. But my point is, we had something for the troops a couple of weeks prior to that, And we got all this crap about, setting up and having everything perfect. And 2 weeks later, you couldn't park down there. You couldn't walk down there. Everybody, it was just total chaos. And nobody got ticketed for the same stuff that we were told not to do. And they did it. They had free reign of it.
That kind of thing is just incredibly frustrating to have to go through. I've seen a number of decades, and I have been watching progressively, like the proverbial frog in the boiling pot. I've been watching my country walk away from me with purpose. I was a Republican, for example. When I started out, I was a massive leftist, Democrat. I was at a university where I was listening, reading books about Eldridge Cleaver, etc., etc. I worked on a presidential campaign, and then I got a job, and then I started to move to the right, and then the more I had invested in society, the more to the right I moved, and then Ronald Reagan got elected. And once Ronald Reagan came into office, my eyes really, in fact, opened up from that. I was a Republican. I re-registered as a Republican for quite some time. But as many people say, and unfortunately it's true at least with me, the GOP left me. So I am now a registered independent. Frequently, I have nothing but this phrase to say about the GOP: fuck them.
Right.
It's sad that it's gone there, but that leads me to this question. What do you happen to think yourself now about the current state of the GOP?
What do I think the current state of the GOP?
Yes.
They're lost. They're totally they're more left on some issues than the left are. And this is the first time that I can remember that the GOP has not rallied behind a Republican president of the United States who beat the enemy of the state, Hillary Clinton. You figured Republicans would be pouring out, coming from everywhere, congratulating him and saying, whatever you need, we're here for you. Finally, we got the House and the Senate, and we can start passing some legislation to help the middle class. Finally, we can repeal and replace Obamacare, which they haven't done, yada, yada. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I get a lot of flack for this for being a conservative. I get a lot of flack from the conservatives. I think McCain is the biggest traitor to the GOP in this country that I've seen in a very long time. The GOP is crazy. They're spineless.
I'd be willing to throw Lindsey Graham in there as well. I sent a little tweet to him, and I said, thank you, just do the obvious. Please be honest. I value two things on the show, honesty and clarity. So I said to him, just be honest, change your R to a D, and be done with it. Just be done with it. Now, in the chat room, somebody said earlier, McCain is not going to be around all that long. McCain has... I understand his background. I understand his having been imprisoned at the Hanoi Hilton. I understand that he served. All well and good. That's in the past. God bless him for that. What he's doing now is he's nothing but an abject underminer and a betrayer of conservatives. It's all about him. It's all about the establishment. Frequently, there isn't a dime's worth of difference between the people on the left and the people on the right, which is why I left the GOP. They kept asking for money and then pissed it away.
Right. Yeah, I'm still registered Republican, but that's a very loose registration right now. And I tell you, I agree with you 110% with what you just said, DZ. They've gotten to a point where they're regressing, and not pushing the country forward, where we finally have a chance to do some great things, not only for the party, but for America. And you have a president that wants to, that's hands-on, that wants to do things. And you know what? I tell everybody, I wasn't a Trump guy in the beginning.
No,
I certainly wasn't.
Yep.
I actually didn't like anybody on the GOP side. I didn't like anybody on the Democrat side. I mean, come on, we had Bernie and Hillary. I mean, one extreme to the other. And
but Bernie was honest. Bernie was honest. He told you what the hell he was. I admired that. For God's sakes. I at least have to honor that in a man, as opposed to Hillary Clinton. Oh my God!
Right. No, I agree with you. Yeah, she was. I called the Clinton cartel. I hashtag that all the time, Clinton cartel. And finally, when Trump was shooting from the hip a couple of times, and he was talking out of the box, and he kind of just went full force into it. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to start looking at this guy. And then, of course, when he won the nomination, when he went up against Hillary Clinton, I said, there's no way I'm voting for Hillary Clinton. Anybody who knows anybody, well, there was a lot of Democrats who did it, so I'm not sure where they're coming from. But, if you just wanted to vote for party, then that was the wrong reason. And again, it comes down to voting the lesser of the two evils, like always.
It's unfortunate that we have to be there, but it's true. I am absolutely with you on that. I did have a guy in the game. That was Ted Cruz. Ted made some political errors, and like all the rest of the 16 other people, he got kicked to the curb. But when it was obvious that it was going to be Trump, then I decided, okay, I've had to grit my teeth, and I've lost tons of enamel off of it over the years because of gritting my teeth and then going into the voting booth and going, all right, I'll do it on this one. So I voted for Trump, specifically because he was not Hillary Clinton and because I had hope for SCOTUS. But there's a massive, massive problem, and it continues to be this. I don't believe the GOP knows what the hell to do with power. Now, it's only had power 3 times like this. It had the House, the Senate, and the presidency in 1928. Then it had it only the second time ever, from 2003 to 2006 under Bush. When in power, all I saw was, quote, bipartisanship and compromise, unquote, but only bipartisanship and compromise on the part of the GOP, because the left is never included in that. Now we're undermining ourselves under Trump because they don't like the guy with the dead orange cap on his head, who still, despite all the massive forces arrayed against him, is still a survivor.
Yeah, he's taking a punch left and taking a punch right. He took a couple of uppercuts. I mean, he's hanging in there like a champ, even if his approval ratings are only at 33%, which I never, gave a crap about approval ratings anyhow. If that was the case, then, Obama would have been like 10% in my opinion.
Well, because we know polls are so incredibly, incredibly accurate. Oh, that's right. It was Donald Trump who won the presidency. Oh, that's right. It was the UK that did decide to vote for Brexit. So, those polls and those opinion ratings, they're extremely accurate.
Yeah, they don't mean crap, and I mean that's pretty evident. Just like you said, with Trump being elected into office, and I'll tell you what, when I woke up the next morning, I didn't even watch the election because you heard all the rhetoric, you heard all the media hype that she was ahead in the polls and ahead here and ahead there, and it's like, you know what, I don't want to wake up in the morning and see her president of the United States. That'll just ruin the rest of my next 4 years. And when my wife said, "Your man won," and I'm like, "What?"
Yeah,
she said,
that's right.
President. I said, "Don't joke with me."
You're screwing with me.
Right.
Stop.
Leave it.
So we've discussed McCain. We've discussed the GOP. Don't get me wrong. There's still some good people in the Republican Party. One of them recently. I mean, I really like this guy, Senator Tom Cotton. He has the longest neck in politics right now, but despite that, he came up with the RAISE Act. And who came out against that? Oh, that's right, it was Lindsey Graham. Oh, and Ron Johnson, too. And another quote from Lindsey Graham. If you think that I am not going to go for amnesty, then just don't vote for me.
Wow.
That's
the
current.
They're setting the precedents like that because they're also the precedents. I mean, the only guy that I like right now on the Republican side of the House is, I don't know if you know who Congressman Scott Perry is.
Yes, as a matter of fact, yes, I do.
He actually helped our chamber out. Scott and I are actually really great friends. I called his office numerous times to help veterans out, and he was always willing to help. He was always there. And the guy, what I like about him is if you call his office, you don't get the whole the textbook answer back. He answers back himself, and he does a video show. I don't want to say a show, but he does like a question and answer type thing once a month, and the Facebook chat's going crazy. But for some reason, this man is so super smart that he gets to every question and he answers each and every one of them, and he goes down. It's somebody like that. We need more Scott Perrys in office.
Here's another shock. There's a congressman who the lines changed again, so now I'm about a mile out of his district. But my Congress critter used to be Tom McClintock. Tom McClintock is one of the smartest damn dudes that I'm aware of, and it's amazing that he's a right guy still in California. I say I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied. I call it Fornicalia because it fucks over everything with which it comes in contact. We are literally, we are 3 miles from the Bill Mill in Sacramento, from the belly of the beast, the SHR studios where I'm broadcasting right now. And I feel like I am in a fucking occupied state called Fornicalia. Yet, we still have one guy, Tom McClintock, who tries to fight as best he can. Tom Cotton came up with this particular bill. Lindsey Graham was immediately against it with this guy named Johnson. That was the Reforming American Immigration for a Strong Economy Act raise. Now, let's see, it was Perdue, I think he's out of Georgia, and I know for a fact it was Tom Cotton out of Arkansas. And so Lindsey decides that it's a good idea to blast that bill because it's going to cut legal immigration by half. Okay. I swear to God, some of these people, I don't think they know the difference between illegal immigration and people holding green cards and how the process even works. And you're going to disagree with this. We take in 1 million immigrants a year and have done so for decades. Why should we not prioritize people who come into the United States? Sarge, can you think of any reason?
Look, I've said since day one that I've gotten into the political arena that we've needed immigration reform. And everybody that has went up to the presidency has promised immigration, including Obama, all the way back as I can remember, even in the Reagan era. He was promising, and of course, we all know Reagan gave amnesty to how many millions of illegals.
That's true.
That's one thing I didn't like about Reagan.
Correct.
And the Contra scandal, that's another whole story. But I mean, moving up to present time, I'm like you. I was I wouldn't say I was a Democrat. I grew up in a household of Democrats. My grandfather, my grandmother, everybody were Democrats. And so I heard it all the time. And one thing that they always had said was, we need to welcome these because we're a land of immigrants. And it's like, okay. And that at that point I started doing my research because, in high school I was a big history buff. I love history. And, that's when I started making that transition over to the Republican/GOP side of the house. And, but I've been saying since day one that we've always needed immigration reform. The key word there is what people don't understand. I brought my wife over here the right way. I spent thousands of dollars bringing her over here.
Yes,
getting my family over from
across time and money.
It took time and money, and I did it the right way. Okay, she's a citizen of the United States now. She loves America. She doesn't look at herself any other way. She assimilated into the society. She became American. She immersed herself in the culture. She still has her, ethnicity. However, she looks, breathes, feels red, white, blue. And what people fail to understand, and the left and the Democrats fail to understand, is it's illegal no matter how you look at it. Illegal is illegal. No matter if you were born here or not. If you're illegal, if you're, not born in the country, but if you come into the country illegal, you're illegal. And it just drives me insane when you try to get in a conversation with a leftist on this, because, they just want to say, well, we're a land of the immigrants. And then, of course, they get into the whole, we took this land away from the indigenous folks that were here first. And that's when I go into, no, we're a conquering nation. We conquered this nation.
Yeah, Rentun. Hey, folks, we're talking to Big Sarge of Moab Radio. We're going to have to go for the bottom of the hour break, but please, when we come back, I'd like to talk to Big Sarge a little bit more about immigration, and I'd like to talk about the Big Six Republicans. So, folks, little break, come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America, one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Well, folks, this is the last segment, the last half hour. I have to tell you, I'm having a wonderful time. I've been talking for, about 45 minutes now with Big Sarge of Moab Radio. He's on Twitter at Moab Radio 101, if I'm not mistaken. And I had I've got a list of 17 tabs on the top of my computer over here on the right, because I run this thing off of 2 computers, the laptop that has Spreaker and all that stuff. And then I set up my audio clips over here, and I've got 17 audio clips all lined up that I was going to go to tonight. But I have to tell you, Big Sarge, I'm having such a great time. I got to ask you this. It's late as hell, obviously. It's past the witching hour. Do you mind staying till the top of the hour, or do you have to go? If you got to go, I get it completely.
No, I'm here. I took the morning off tomorrow morning, so just for this show, I had a few extra hours, and my wife is out of town tonight, so I said, oh, since you're out of town, I'm going to join BZ.
Well, cool. Number 1, I appreciate it. Number 2, I really appreciate the sacrifice for doing that. Number 3, I have to tell you, it's wonderful to have met you. It's wonderful to speak to you. There's a ton of stuff we have in common, and I'd like the people to get to know you so that they can go to your radio, to your site, listen to you, and we're all under this big umbrella of the SHR Media Network and the High Plains Pundit Radio. There's a lot of good people to listen to, and I got to tell you, that's why you're here. We were talking about immigration, And we were talking about the RAISE Act, and I was speaking about Lindsey Graham. And Lindsey said, with regard to this, he doesn't like the RAISE thing. He said, South Carolina's #1 industry is agriculture, and tourism is #2. If this proposal were to become law, it would be devastating to our state's economy, which relies on this immigrant workforce. Stop. What he means is he likes cheap fucking labor and doesn't want to pay for it. And he's probably also been paid, I'll say this up front, by people who want to continue in businesses to get free labor. I don't have any other way of putting it. What is wrong with a merit-based and a skills-based immigration system and a legal immigration system? You, however, had an excellent point with regard to your wife. And as we said before the break, you spent time and you spent money to get her to be a lawful citizen of the United States. I don't know if I'm getting too deep, but I'd be curious, and if you don't feel like saying this, you can tell me to go to hell. But I'll bet you spent literally thousands of dollars to do this.
Almost in excess of $15,000 to get her over here.
Can you, ladies and gentlemen, listen to this: $15,000 to bring one person over here from Europe who wanted to do it the right way.
Son BZ to a previous marriage. I brought him over as well. So two people.
Okay. All right. But my guess is, yes, you spent the time and you spent the money and you did it lawfully. But you also mentioned something else that I think is critical. You said the system is broken.
Yes, certainly is.
Because you've seen it. You've been a direct witness. What are some of the things do you think that we can do to right the system, to bail it out, get the water out of the freeboard, and make the ship run right?
Oh, boy, where do I start?
I know it's a hell of a question, but it's someone somewhere has got to start to address it.
Yeah, we definitely do. If I was president of the United States, I would put, I would get all my experts together on this. All right, because I don't proclaim that I'm an expert on immigration. All right, there's laws you got to abide by. As far as humanity is concerned. And you just don't want to throw people out there that very well could be, because it's happened. Where we've deported folks who are citizens, and we find out later on that we deport them. So there's a lot of variables in this. I don't think there's one particular answer to this problem. I think we need to start at the bottom and work our way up. I think we need to do a lot more of gang violence type awareness.
Okay.
Because we know the Zetas, we know the MS-13. I did my master's dissertation on MS-13 coming across the border and helping radical Muslims come across the border as well. And it's crazy where it's gotten. I mean, I really wouldn't know where to start other than getting all the experts together, BZ, and saying, look, let's come up with a plan and let's do it the right way this time.
It worked. We could make things work. One thing that we cannot do is just automatically deport millions of people. We don't have the space, the courts, etc. for it. But in the 80s, working the jail system, I can tell you that how the system used to work is if someone was arrested, and obviously that's why you come into a jail, because you've come through the windscreen of law enforcement. Come into the jail. If we suspected that they were illegal, at the end of the shift, we called the U.S. Border Patrol, gave them names, information. They'd come the next day on day shift, conduct individual interviews with these people, and then they would lay what was called a border hold or a border detainer, and that's been the way it's been done literally for 30 years since. And now all of a sudden, sanctuary cities and sanctuary states have determined that they will no longer acknowledge federal holds or detainers. And that's just wrong. But again, it's purposeful. Like we were talking to the underground professor in terms of how the Constitution is taught. It's purposeful as to how these various entities and agencies are deciding that they're going to completely ignore federal law. And now all of a sudden, the massive 10th Amendment people, yes, go states. Oh, that's right. We're the same people that just absolutely love the hell out of the federal government. And we want single payer. So it's time to pick and choose whenever the hell they want.
Right.
But you're right. We have to start somewhere. And I agree with you. We start at the bottom.
Yeah.
One of the other...
I think another thing we could do, BZ, is... you know, a lot of the country, Mexico especially, seems to be our, you know, a thorn in our side right now. I think that we need to get tougher on Mexico and say, look, if you don't start controlling your people coming across the border, or get some type of border patrol company or whatever you want to call it together, start cracking down on your gangs over there. You know, and if we have to move across the border, we're going to move across the border and start taking these people out. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. And the second thing is, yeah, if we do build a wall, we need to build it like the DMZ. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. They're going to find a way to get around it. I'm sure they're going to they're going to try to find a way to get underneath it. And that's going to be hard to try to, I guess, counter. However, if you're going to build a wall, do it right. Do it like the DMZ. I mean, that's going to cut down on a lot of, you know, illegal and drug running coming across the border, or at least it'll deter a lot of it.
You can build a physical wall, and you can augment it with technology. And there have to be people on our side of the wall as well. You may or may not know I worked for the federal government for a while. I worked for the FBI and I worked for the U.S. Marshals. I came to my sanity and then came back to California for the rest of my law enforcement career. But while I was there, the FBI and the DEA go to Quantico. And when you train all the other law enforcement agencies in the federal system, then go to FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Brunswick, Georgia. And when I was there, I had all sorts of, I'm telling you, and you don't doubt this for a second, I'm sure, the people that come through the academy for the U.S. Border Patrol, etc., they live to do that job. Take the damn cuffs off and let them do their job. And finally, they're being uncuffed, and we are starting to see some of the results. But we do need to build the wall, and it needs to be soon. And here's why. Here's another amongst a myriad of reasons why this has to occur. Venezuela is fatally unstable. I'm not sure Venezuela is going to come back. It's on the precipice of a total collapse, but that's not the only South American state that's in jeopardy. Many leftists and dictators have migrated into a great many countries in South America, but Venezuela is going to be the first tile to fall. And then the people that find that country unlivable are going to begin to stream out of that and into Guatemala is gone, Honduras, tenuous, Colombia, tenuous, El Salvador. And here's what's going to happen sooner or later, because I'm sure that Venezuela is going to go. It's going to fall. I don't see that it can be pulled back just yet. But you're going to see, and Mexico. Mexico is on the brink of going leftist too, right on our border. When, not if, when Venezuela goes, you're going to see a mass of humanity go north from South America, because they're not going to find sustenance in the surrounding South American countries. Many of them are not far from the precipice as well. So this mass of humanity is going to come north up through Mexico. Now, do you think that Mexico, in its wisdom, is going to say, oh no, we're going to be the buttress against all you people? No, what they're going to say is, hey, go a little bit further, go through the United States. And we're going to see in the United States, here, from South America, what Europe is starting to see, and is definitely seeing, right now. That's another reason to build the wall. Any thoughts on that?
No, absolutely, 110% correct. I couldn't agree with you more. As a matter of fact, we were just talking about this our last Saturday show. We were talking about sanctuary cities, and we got on the topic of how Venezuela is, and a lot of those countries down in South America or south of the border, rather, they're collapsing. They're falling into disarray, and those people are going to want to go somewhere. And where do they migrate? They're not going to migrate south. They're going to migrate north. And where do you think they're going to want to come? They're not going to want to stay in Mexico. Nobody wants to stay in Mexico for obvious reasons. They're going to want to come to the United States.
Well,
that's going to be a twofold problem.
Mexico will hustle them. Yeah, Mexico will hustle them on along. Go faster, faster, more of you, faster.
Yep. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to bus them across themselves.
You know that for a fact. I speak to people in law enforcement. I don't know why this popped into my wheelhouse, my brain housing group right now. But you may or may not know that there are cartel members with multi-$1,000 sniper rifles and third-generation NVGs that are sitting on top of American mountaintops in America, in U.S. states, that are watching the mules and the drugs and the people come through to ensure that their routes are uninterrupted. I don't know if you're aware of that or not. I'm guessing you probably were.
Yeah, I lived some time down in Arizona, and a buddy of mine also is from Arizona. He's a former Marine, and his father has some land on the border between Mexico and he gets. I mean, just in his own backyard, he gets in firefights like downtown, Baghdad type of firefights, and it's crazy. And he tells me all the time, he's like, the cartels own a portion of American soil.
Yes, they do. Absolutely. And there are signs in America saying that you cannot go into this particular territory, federal land.
I've seen one of them.
Again, that's underreported, underinvestigated, purposefully. But Americans with, just as you've indicated, with property, homes, etc., on the border, they are in terrible, terrible jeopardy. And I know for a fact, because I still have contacts in law enforcement, there are ISIS elements in the United States right now already. There's one in Davis, California. There's another one in Alameda, California, right off of Interstate 80. And I don't think I'm speaking out of school when I reveal this. ISIS elements are already in the United States. How did they get here? I can tell you for a fact they came across the border because frequently some people cannot tell the difference between, say, your Mark I Model 1 Mexican and your Mark I Model 1 dude from the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I mentioned that when I wrote my dissertation. Heck, that was 2000, so long ago, 2009, 2010, 2011. I recognized it back then. And of course, my professor was quite the liberal. Imagine that. And, we had quite the debate about it. And, one thing led to another where, he actually ended up giving me a good grade on it. And he said I brought up some very interesting points, but however, he doesn't think that that's exactly what's going on. And you can tell, look at how the Zetas and look at how all the cartels down there are doing business. You've never seen them chop heads off before. You've never seen them hang people, exactly like ISIS and all them do. The execution style has changed down there. The whole precipice down there for how they do business has changed. And you can see the radical Islamic groups' influence on the cartels in those areas.
And let me tell you this, and I don't think I'm speaking out of school. There is Middle Eastern money going into Mexico, into the cartels for that very self-same reason.
Right. No, I agree with you.
And that money, where does that money come from? That money comes from the United States. A lot of it, and goes across the pond into the Middle East, and it gets funneled from Iran and all sorts of other sources, to include China. I happen to know that for a fact as well. This is weird. I've never had the opportunity or the occasion to speak about this before. Some people may not be happy with
quite
me.
the topic.
It's an incredible topic that no one wants to address. It's the massive purple with pink polka dots elephant.
They think if they ignore it, it'll go away.
It's not going away.
No.
I spoke last night on the Sackheads radio show. One of the things that I said is there is a massive societal upheaval coming to the United States. I do not know in what form it will occur, but I can tell you that it is coming, because when a people like the United States, and when you talk about poor people, you're talking apples and hubcaps as opposed to poor people in any other country. Let the government checks stop for 1 month for any reason whatsoever, and all what I call the major American urban rat cages are going to be on fire. They're going to be on fire. Now, we're heading to an upheaval because leftism is absolutely unsustainable. And we haven't even addressed the bigger elephant in the room. And that's the budget. The Democrats and the Republicans don't even talk budget anymore. That balloon is going to burst, too. And if it happens to burst, if we get a societal burst along with a budgetary burst, we are imminently screwed.
No doubt about it. And Pennsylvania's still trying to pass their budget. It's, even state budgets aren't getting passed. And when state budgets and federal budgets are getting passed, I mean, you got to start scratching your head and figuring out, what are you doing? You're supposed to be representing your constituents and doing your damn job. And here you are, pussyfooting around, and then you want to go on a 2-month vacation and without a passed budget. If I was president of the United States, I would say nobody's going on vacation until we get a budget, passed in Congress.
That seems like obvious, something incredibly obvious to both you and me, because we are right-thinking individuals on 2 separate levels. But it's absolutely beyond human ken for people on the left and some on the right. Let me tell you how stupid it's gotten in terms of budget in Fornicalia. Jersey Joe addressed this, and that's why it tickled my brain housing group. The state of California wants to go single-payer health care. They've made a determination that it's going to cost $400+ billion with a B to fund that. That's the total budget these days of the entire California budget. So they want to double the debt, essentially. One particular person on the left who did not vote for that has subsequently been getting death threats at his office in Fornicalia and at his home, where he lives. That's how insane and off the rails this particular state is. Plus, of course, it wants to secede. And what you say in chat is absolutely right. Leftism is absolutely out of control. Where does it stop? It's going to stop. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I'm telling you, it's going to fucking stop.
I don't know when. Like you said, leftism is absolutely unsustainable. Not only that, it's completely out of control. Like we were talking about earlier, BZ, they're more organized than the right is right now. On certain things, and they're more organized in taking the right out, so to speak. As opposed to the right being organized, to getting, none of them want to meet in the middle. And the right they're everywhere. They can't come together on anything. Hell, we've seen that with the repeal and replace. And the left is taking advantage of that. I'm telling you, 2020 is going to be a crazy year.
Here's why it's a terrible, terrible conundrum. And that's why I mentioned 6 particular Republicans can go straight to hell. And that would be, let's see, I'm going to try to tick these off on my fingers. Lamar Alexander out of Tennessee, Shelley Capito out of West Virginia, Dean Heller out of Nevada, because I remember him, John McCain, obviously, Lisa Murkowski out of Alaska, and Rob Portman out of Ohio. I think Collins out of Maine has voted against attempts to repeal Obamacare. All of those people need to go to hell. Straight and fast. Because here's the deal. Here's the ultimate thing. I voted for Trump because he's not Hillary Clinton. I think in this time we have an amazing opportunity that, in my opinion, has not been potentially handed to us before. We have the chance to change SCOTUS for literally generations. I firmly am convinced that there's going to be another opening before the end of this year. It may or may not be Kennedy, but there will be another one. That's 2. I suspect that between now and 2020, we're going to get a third. We've got Neil Gorsuch, great installation. When you have 3 people now that are moving to the right, you're going to change this nation. This nation will be changed, but that's being threatened. When we are in control, we, the GOP, the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and we can't coalesce around that, and we don't see that that's the goal that needs to be reached, we're in terrible jeopardy, because when 2020 comes around and you see a Democrat in there, they're going to do the exact same thing that Trump did, that Obama did. It's all going to be executive orders. Everything's going to be pulled out by the roots, and it'll go back to Obama, just like it was before. That's why these fucktards have to wake up.
Yeah, it's just one big circle, and they finally got somebody in office that actually can make that change that you've been wanting. And, they're both obstructionists on the right and the left, and that's all they've been doing against Trump. And it's, it's very discerning as a Republican card-carrying member to see this happen, and, not only in our party, but to see that the left, can't even meet anybody in the middle on anything.
Absolutely correct. Unfortunately, folks, we have to go. That's the end of the hour. But before we go, Big Sarge, tell folks again where you can be reached, where you can be read and heard. Sir.
Sure. www.facebook.com/Moab Radio 101. I'm sorry, Moab 101. And we got just do a Big Sarge Moab Radio with Big Sarge search on YouTube. And, of course, Moab Radio 101 for our Twitter handle as well. Thanks, BZ. I really had a great time with you. Thanks for having me on the show.
I had a great time as well. Thank you for being on. Love to have you back. I'm not sure that you're sure about that, because you had to take time off from work. God, do I feel guilty about that. Folks, we were listening to Big Sarge from Moab Radio. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to him. I hope to have him back. And that's it for the show.
Monsieur has been locked.
Well. Did I ever have a great time tonight, or what? First, we listened to The Underground Professor. That is Dr. Michael Jones. And then we spent the rest of the damn show talking to Big Sarge of Moab Radio. You can hear him at High Plains Pundit Radio. Again, thanks to you, Dan Butcher. And so thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon right here on the SHR Media Network. I have to tell you that promotional consideration, I haven't said this in a while, is by Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company, because if it ain't Boeing, I ain't going, and my tiaras are courtesy of My Little Pony. You know this one for a fact, and you know what's coming next. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will be consulting most liberally. It's the end of the week, folks, in less than an hour. Thank you ever so kindly for listening live. Thanks to the professor. Thanks to Big Sarge. Thank you for being involved in the chat room. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.